Hi, it's the Florida Law Guy. On today's episode of Making It Simple, we're going to be talking about arraignments. The concept of the rule of law has only been around for about 800 years. During the Dark Ages, the king was considered to be above the law and basically did whatever he wanted. People did not have any rights. Enemies of the king would get seized and thrown into dungeons for years and would not even know why. Now, after King John, the villain in Robin Hood, was forced to sign the Magna Carta in 1215, the rule of law and due process gradually replaced the divine will of kings, and people were given basic human rights. One of these rights was for the accused to be publicly informed of the crime they were accused of committing. Because the printing press, paper, and the post office had not yet been invented, and most people were completely illiterate anyway, the accused would be physically brought before the crown, and the king's prosecutor would read out loud the allegations of the crime that the defendant was accused of violating. Then the accused was given an opportunity to plead guilty and throw himself on the king's mercy, or plead not guilty and request a trial. This public reading by the prosecutor to the accused is called an arraignment. Because American and Florida law is based upon hundreds of years of tradition and legal precedents that existed in England centuries before the establishment of the United States, many of the legal concepts and terms are still in existence today. So even though most people today can read and write, we continue to have arraignments in which the prosecutor reads the formal charges to the defendant in open court, and the defendant is asked to enter one of three pleas: guilty, not guilty, or no contest. If the defendant pleads guilty, the judge could impose punishment at that time. If the defendant pleads not guilty, the court will reset the case for another court date, which is normally called a pretrial conference in most Florida counties. Unlike a plea of guilty or not guilty, the defendant needs permission from the judge to be allowed to enter a plea of no contest. When a person pleads no contest, they're not admitting guilt. They're just saying that they're choosing not to contest or fight the charges. However, the result of a plea of no contest is the same as a plea of guilty. Under current Florida law, a criminal defendant has the right to waive the arraignment. If a person is represented by an attorney, the arraignment is waived if the lawyer files a written plea of not guilty prior to the arraignment. So the overwhelming majority of people with lawyers never have to go to court for their arraignment. Instead, the judge will just set the case automatically for a pretrial conference. However, people without lawyers must go to their arraignments or risk having a warrant or capias issued for failing to appear. At the arraignment's court date, the judge will first ask the defendant if they need to have the public defender appointed to represent them. If the defendant asks for the PD, the public defender will then enter an oral plea of not guilty, and the case will be reset for a pretrial conference. In Florida, defendants have the right to examine evidence prior to pleading guilty, but if they plead guilty at arraignment, most of the time they won't have that opportunity. Therefore, although people have a right to plead guilty at arraignment, in Florida this is very rarely done. A plea of not guilty at arraignment is not frowned upon by the court because all criminal defendants are presumed innocent and nobody is punished for initially entering a plea of not guilty. It is very common in standard practice for a person to originally plead not guilty and then change their plea to guilty or no contest at a later court date if they feel that's in their best interest after consulting with an attorney. So therefore, in most cases, the arraignment is no big deal and isn't anything for anyone to fear. It's completely free, so please support my mission to help make Florida law simple for the public to understand by liking and clicking the subscribe button. The way YouTube's algorithms work, the more likes and subscriptions a channel gets, the easier it is for others to be able to find it. So by subscribing, you'll also be helping others. Thanks for watching. See you next time.